Sponsored by DeleteMe. The most exciting smartphones to me continue to be those that change their shape depending on what you want to do with them. And this continues to be one of the most exciting brands in that foldable space. The Honor Magic V3, and to a lesser extent its clamshell cousin, the Magic V Flip, is the ultimate embodiment of its manufacturer's mission to make phones that seem impossible. For the V3, that means a book-type foldable slim enough to shame the competition. For the V Flip, it means a cover screen that got huge before that became table stakes. And for both, it means cameras that surprise, and software that does not. I took both of these Snapdragon-powered smartphones to Qualcomm's summit of the same name in Hawaii for yet another episode of Why Can't We Get Phones This Cool in the US? AKA the MrMobile Road Trip Review. Before we hit that Hawaiian adventure, let's get hardware acquainted. As I've said before, the foldable segment is one of the last places that an obsession with thinness still makes sense, since physics dictates that the phone doubles in depth when you close it. So, a thickness of 9.2 millimeters is truly an achievement here. Not much more than an iPhone when closed. And you know, this is an even bigger deal than it seems. I'm so used to manufacturers using size and weight as excuses to delete features from foldables that I didn't even try putting the V3 onto a wireless charger, because I just assumed that Honor would say it was too thin to accommodate the coil, we couldn't fit it, sorry. So imagine my surprise when I tossed it on my charging pack at OGG, and I found myself some chi.
Isn't that impressive, David?
As impressive is how much you don't feel the phone's 226 grams. Reading books or doing anything for long periods on the inner display is incredibly comfortable here, without the pinky fatigue that heavier foldables can sometimes give you. That 30-gram difference means I use this phone completely differently than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Whereas Google's resizing of that model caused me to use it closed more often, the Magic's thin and light chassis motivates me to keep it open. And while the 7.8-inch inner display doesn't quite reach the Pixel's 8-inch diagonal, I can't say I noticed. Now, you do have the option to favor protection over portability, with an included case that adds the benefit of a clever kickstand. I continue to appreciate companies that opt to add perks like this, rather than relentlessly delete them in cost-cutting measures disguised as sustainability plays. But the V3 is so svelte without the case that I took it off as soon as I captured these clips and never wanted to replace it. There are only two disadvantages to the V3's hardware that I could detect. For one, physics is just as cruel as always when it comes to cameras, so the octagonal optics module protrudes more prominently on this phone than almost any other. And the other disappointment is that the V3's hardware is so dramatically awesome that it makes the V Flip look pedestrian by comparison. This phone is not especially lightweight or thin, and it's not especially capable either, because it follows the annoying trend of fencing off most apps from fully utilizing the cover screen. Now, this all makes sense for Honor's first clamshell, which, by the way, is confined to a China release, and I'll show you some camera samples in a bit that help to redeem this little guy. But I'm much more excited for future Honor flippables than this one. All the V3's wins have put me in such a great mood, I'm truly reluctant to pivot to the letdowns. So let's touch on one more surprising victory: endurance. Honor is on its third generation of silicon-carbon battery technology, which allows it to achieve more power density in a thinner package. And the Snapdragon Summit is the closest thing to a battery stress test that MrMobile can offer. Maui's average temperature is high. Wireless network performance is poor because 5G and Wi-Fi are overloaded. I'm taking endless photos and videos and constantly importing more from my Meta Ray-Bans. I'm always keeping the screens at max brightness to overcome the overhead sun, and my messaging and note-taking are absolutely constant. Despite starting that punishing regime around 7 a.m., the V3's power meter didn't hit single digits until around 11 p.m. And when I'm back home in normal usage, it lasts even longer. The sum total of all those pluses is a piece of hardware that would truly tempt me, if it weren't for, well, the thing that always dishonors Honor phones.
I have grown weary of bearing this dishonor.
The details after DeleteMe.
As a person with an internet presence, I'm never going to scrub all my information completely from it, nor would I want to. But I don't like it when other people buy and sell my information.
To help stop that, I've been using today's sponsor, DeleteMe, for over a year to take back control of my personal information. In that time, DeleteMe has reviewed over 28,000 listings across the web, and it's removed my personal information from 125 separate data brokers. That means private information like my physical addresses, property records, and names of my family members scrubbed, without me having to lift a finger. That makes it harder for people to buy that information to use against me for phishing or identity theft. And because data brokers are relentless, DeleteMe is too. They'll repeat the process every 3 months as long as I'm subscribed. So take back control and delete your personal data from the web. Visit joindeleteme.com/MrMobile and use code MrMobile for 20% off. Thanks to DeleteMe for sponsoring this video. Smartphones are a delicate balance of hardware and software, while reviews are a delicate balance of positives and negatives, and also fighting the looming sense that no matter what I say, nothing will ever change. There's no bigger contributor to that sense of futility than Honor, which has been shipping largely the same stew of brazen iOS ripoffs and a tepid bag of Huawei leftovers for the past 4 years. This makes sense. The bulk of Honor's sales come from its home market of China, where user needs are very different, as are cultural views about copycatting. So just from a business perspective, it doesn't make much sense to invest too heavily in software that will only run on a small percentage of overall units. Now, that said, competitors like Oppo and Xiaomi started out in the same place, and over the years, each has gotten much better at building software fit for Europe and the US. Meanwhile, Honor, despite the requisite lip service to AI features of dubious value, doesn't seem to have evolved its user experience almost at all. Right up front, you have to agree to terms of service so Byzantine and fragmented that it takes 5 minutes just to get through it. Several apps contain grammatical errors that have gone uncorrected on earlier phones for years. Interface elements overlap. Try to add more apps to a folder, and they're sorted alphabetically until they're not. Turning on dual time zones will give you 2 clocks on your home screen any time you leave your town, even if the next time zone is hundreds of miles away. On the V Flip, all the fancy portrait modes I'm about to show you aren't available on the cover screen, despite the fact that it's using the exact same camera. And built-in Honor apps like the document viewer and video editor look amazing, until you realize how tough it is to do something as simple as highlight text in the former and cut video in the latter.
Literally just trying to cut like 2 seconds off the end of an Instagram reel, and it's been like a 3.5-minute operation. I can't. The software tricks you because it's like, oh wow, cool, a lot of features, cool design, and then it just doesn't work.
On top of that, you've got all the usual frustrations of not getting timely notifications, yes, even after all the tricks, and wearables not staying connected. But lest you think Honor hasn't invested in its software at all, not so. Just look at the new dynamic capsule. Magic Island. Whatever you'd like to call this predictable, but nevertheless depressing Apple aping. For most phones, my review would end there. But fortunately for Honor, and my memories, the Magic V3 and V Flip have surprises up their sleeves, in the form of a flip that doesn't mind getting dirty, and cameras you can entrust with your memorable moments. It was Laguna Beach a few years ago that taught me how unhappy I'd become with my life. But it was Hawaii that convinced me to do something about it. Mostly by showing me how many of my friends were taking charge of their own lives, rather than waiting for change to come to them. These opportunities for personal reflection in beautiful locales more than make up for the time spent in dark ballrooms hearing about microchips. And capturing those moments is made all the easier by phones whose cameras are up to the challenge. I should mention that many of these shots are made all the more special by the Harcourt portrait mode built into both of these phones. I had already learned ahead of Hawaii how to leverage them for shots of Brooklyn sunsets, Manhattan watch fairs, and Billie Eilish lasers. So I was well prepared to use them, and occasionally misuse them on landscapes at the summit. But one thing I wasn't prepared for was how much dust I would encounter.
I feel like I'm drunk.
I know, right?
My brain's been rattled around in my skull so much.
This footage comes from the Maui off-road ATV adventure that Qualcomm provided for some of its guests, and the dust was so fine that it behaved more like a liquid, inundating skin, fabric, and the internals of the Magic V Flip that carries no dust or water resistance whatsoever. And yet, it continued to function flawlessly for the entire 2 hours and thereafter, with nary a grind of a gear nor a hesitation of the hinge. Now look, I'm not saying foldables are as robust as their slab counterparts. I've never said that. But I am saying that from what I've seen, failures of displays tend to be of the spontaneous manufacturer defect variety, or those occasions when you accidentally close the phone on a pebble or something, rather than the much-feared dust or water exposure. For what it's worth, the Magic V3, the bigger one, is IPX8 water-resistant. I don't know if it was the adrenaline of the ATVs, the fresh air of the mountains, or the portraits of good friends I got along the way, but I arrive at this video's conclusion more buoyant than I expected to be.
I fear that will not be enough.
Oh, I still can't truly recommend these phones until Honor demonstrates a capacity for any attention to detail in its global software. And the V Flip falls far enough short of the Motorola Razr and Galaxy Flip 6 that you should probably wait for its sequel. But for a phone that fancies itself a strong competitor to Samsung hardware, well, the Magic V3 is already there. This video was produced following several weeks with a Magic V3 review sample provided by Honor and a Magic V Flip retail unit purchased by MrMobile, shot partially on location at the Snapdragon Summit on Maui with travel, lodging, food and drink, and ATVs furnished by Qualcomm. A special thanks also to Spotify for the Billie Eilish tickets. But no company was given editorial input into this video, nor did anyone receive an early preview of its contents, and I was provided no compensation in exchange for its production. These opinions are mine, and the lone sponsor is DeleteMe. If you'd like to see more videos like this, check out my road trip review playlist, or watch the videos this series is based on. My buddy David Kogan makes almost every tech video a travel video with his real-world tests over at The Unlocker. Finally, subscribe to the MrMobile on YouTube so you don't miss what I hope to be another road trip review coming this season, this time to India, hopefully with a very special foldable in tow. Till next time, from Michael Fisher, Captain Two Phones on Threads, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.